If you are watching this video, chances are great that you are probably a web developer. Because as my teacher during my first semester said, in 10 years nearly everybody will be a web developer. But still, mobile apps are relevant. The web doesn't feel as native as it should, right? So what is the solution? Your project should support both app and web. And while you could do that by learning Swift for iOS, Kotlin for Android, and JavaScript for the web, you shouldn't, because it's just too much effort. But there's an easier way. Lynx. You just need to have one code base for iOS, Android, and the web. So let's have a look at it together and find out if it can replace the current state of web development. So the first thing we need to do is just to get it running, because no, it's not as easy as doing npx create next step as you are used to it if you're a Next.Js developer. So let's take a look at the quick start, and we start with the pm create rs speedy at latest. So we go into the terminal, into any directory we want to have our project in, and we are running this command. He's asking us about the name of the project. We say this is a awesome example, for example. I hate when I say that. Yeah, we want to use TypeScript. We want to activate ESLint and prettier, I guess. Click enter and all set, happy coding. We can cd into it. It's not a Git repository by default, so you probably need to initialize that if you want it. We don't want it here. We just do the pm install and we are probably done now. We can open that in VS Code. And here we have our awesome project. Looks pretty clean and pretty simple. But how do we run that now, and where do we run that now? So back into the guide, it says we need to prepare the Lynx Explorer. And Lynx Explorer is, as it's written here, a sandbox for trying out Lynx quickly, which is great for that use case right now. So we stick with iOS, but if you're an Android user, no problem. The next couple of minutes are just great to know, but you don't need that. So if you go the Android way, you need to choose that one. And I think it's actually easier. So maybe skip 2 minutes and then I promise you, we will talk about the code more. So we stick with the iOS simulator here. And then we need to install Xcode. If you don't have Xcode, install it in the App Store actually. And then we need to download the Lynx Explorer. So you just choose if you have ARM64 for all M chip series. And then you have the old Intel chips. I have a new chips. And this now has installed me this Lynx Explorer ARM64.tar. Yeah, whatever. And now it's getting a little bit tricky because now we need to copy that thing here. And there's a trap. Maybe use the same browser as I'm using, or you use a other cool browser that is changing the names of download. So what I'm going to do is to change this name, get the right ending, and there we go. You definitely need to be aware of that because otherwise it may not work and you don't understand why. So now we can go back into the terminal and going into the directory, and then we're just pasting the command we have copied. And this is already finished. And if we now take a look into the directory, we see there's a Lynx Explorer ARM64, which is the Lynx Explorer application. But what are we going to do with that now? No, we don't click and open it. That's for some different purpose. And for that, we look more into detail because now we need to open it in a simulator. So if you have installed Xcode, you can run this simulator. It's installed with Xcode. So we open the simulator, and so there we go now. The iPhone is up and running, and what we're actually going to do now is we take this Lynx Explorer and just copy and paste it inside. Sounds extremely easy, and actually it is, but this is already old. So we can open that and we get welcomed with this simple UI. So now we need to enter a card URL. What is that? So we jump back into the code, and of course what we're going to do here now is pm run dev. And there we go. It's loading, it's starting, and this was fast. Now we get a big QR code. I think this is for Android or doing some other things, but we also get this URL. So we go back into our simulator and enter this card URL we have copied, and we paste it, and there it is. This is actually your app right now. Don't believe me? Let's look at some text. Tap the logo and have fun. So let's search that up, tap the logo and have fun, and have even more fun. For example, we save that, but let's look in the terminal how fast this actually is. Save that. Built in 0.14 seconds. So this is fast, pretty fast. And did it work? Yes, it worked. And have even more fun. So hot reloading is extremely fast, which is awesome because that's what I don't like about Next.js at the moment. But that's great, right? That's so much faster than other cross-platform competitors like, for example, React Native. But why is that? Why is that so fast? It's actually because it's not using JavaScript, at least not for everything. It's using Rust, and Rust is a lot faster because it's ahead of time compiled. And I think JavaScript is just in time compiled. And that's the great thing about Lynx. But let's take a look at the code. Is it like web development? What do we code here? How does it feel? Some things look different. Like, what is view? And okay, image, yeah, of course. But generally spoken, it's like HTML, where you have your known tags like P for a paragraph. You also have this here. You have view for a kind of div, and then you have things like text for things that we use as paragraph, for example. And that's the general structure. So you have blocks and you're coding with those blocks. I think that's normal for app development. But what is this? What is it? Is it React? Actually, it kind of is. We have use effect, we have use callback, we have use state. That's all hooks from React. And if we see from where they are imported from React, but with Lynx. What is that? On their website, they actually have a post about that called Thinking in React Lynx. So React Lynx is React, but with some things behaving different. And that's basically just because of the dual threaded runtime we have here. That's great because it's faster, but it also makes some things a little bit hard. And that's why they kind of rebranded some React functionalities. But actually, you can also use it with other frameworks. As they say on their website, they are framework agnostic, which means you can also work with it from other frameworks like Vue. But I don't know how, so go and watch a different video if you want to see that. But let's look more into the code. What is, for example, with styling? It actually is just CSS, which is very, very cool and make things pretty easy. So it's not like you have to learn a new styling system. You can stick to the good old CSS, which is actually pretty good nowadays, not as it was some years ago. But yeah, you can just style like you are in web development. So that's actually the same. And there's even the possibility to use Tailwind. But this will not be part of the video. But if you want to see that, tell me, write a comment. And yeah, that was now how to get it running and how is the general structure. So we learned that it's not that easy to set up, but it's okay. And we learned that it's kind of React and it kind of looks like React. But the overall structure, like the JSX, the thing that you're returning is not basic HTML or is not the same JSX that you can use in web development normally. So I can't do a p tag, say hello world, for example, while there's no one who cries about that here right now. But if we look into the simulator, we get a Lynx create UI exception. So things like that are not working. So you need to use those, I call it building blocks of a Lynx React. So like view, text, image, like the basic components. So the last thing we really just need to talk about is, does it replace web development? And I would say, of course not, because it's just too, let's say, too young. It's a new framework. There are no features for every kind of thing. There's nothing about server-side rendering and stuff like that. And while you probably can do a lot of things in here, it's just not very easy. Not with tools like Next.js nowadays, where it's pretty easy to do awesome things. I think Lynx is great, but hard for use in real-world examples because it's just very new. The documentation is not very clear right now, and that's just my personal opinion. Lynx is missing a trustful company behind it. So like, I don't know, TikTok, is that something trustful? I'm not sure, but I don't want to say something about that. Thank you for watching this video. Have a great time experimenting around with Lynx. Bye bye.